Lust, anger, greed, envy. I like those times. Immediately. Something we have personal experience with. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Shunyavadi Paskyatyare Satarine. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramhansa Prabhadakacharya Asadhara Satushi Shiman His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Haribol Slava Zarani Bhaktam Slava Zarani Bhaktam Slava Shri Guru Shri Granki Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Vicharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskadyade Satarne Om Aganatamandasya Gananjana Stalakaya Chaksur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Shah Shri Rupam Sagridatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Tajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiva Sakans Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabando Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchena Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishubhana Sudha Devi Ranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vivacha Patidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivastadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, The Divine and Demoniac Natures, text number 5. Daivi Sampad Vimokshaya Ibanda Suri Nibanda Yasuri Mata Masocha Sampadam Daivim Abhigato Sipandava Daivi Sampad Vimokshaya Ibanda Yasuri Mata Masocha Sampadam Daivim Abhigatosi Pandava Daivi Sampad Vimokshaya Dayasuri Mata Masocha Sampadam Daivim Abhijotosi Pandava Daivi Sampad Vimokshaya Ibanda Yasuri Mata Masocha Sampadam Daivim Abhijatosi Pandava Daivi Sampad Vimokshaya Nibanda Yasuri Mata Masocha Sampadam Daivim Abhijotosi Pandava. Ladies. Daivi Sampad Vimokshaya Nibanda Yasuri Mata Masocha Sampadam Daivim Abhijatosi Pandava. Daivi transcendental Sampad assets Vimokshaya meant for liberation, Nibandaya for bondage, Asuri demoniac qualities, Mata are considered, Ma do not, Sucha worry, Sampadam assets, Daivim transcendental, Abhigata born of, Asi you are, Pandava O son of Pandu. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The transcendental qualities are conducive to liberation, whereas the demoniac qualities make for bondage. Do not worry, O son of Pandu, for you were born with the divine qualities. Please repeat. The transcendental qualities are conducive to liberation, whereas the demoniac qualities make for bondage. Do not worry, O son of Pandu, for you were born with the divine qualities. Purport. Lord Krishna encouraged Arjuna by telling him that he was not born with demoniac qualities. His involvement in the fight was not demoniac, because he was considering the pros and cons. He considered whether respectable persons such as Bhishma and Drona should be killed or not. So he's not acting under the influence of anger, false prestige, or harshness. Therefore he was not of the quality of the demons. For a Kshatriya, a military man, shooting arrows at the enemy is considered transcendental, and refraining from such a duty is demoniac. Therefore there was no cause for Arjuna to lament. Anyone who performs the regular principles of the different orders of life is transcendentally situated. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Vicharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskadyade Satarne. At the end of this chapter, Krishna tells Arjuna, after telling him about all the different manifestations of demoniac consciousness, such as imam te nanapas, no. Idam adyamaya labdvam imam prapse manorita idam astiya asti me bhavishati punardanam aso maya hatakshatror hanishe chapuranapi ishvaraham hambogi siraham balavan sukhi adyo bidhanavan asmi kaunyo si sadrishan maya yakshe deshami modisha ityagana vimohitaha. That so much wealth do I have today, and I'll gain more according to my schemes. So much is mine, and I'll get more and more. That he is my enemy, and I've killed him. And all my other enemies will also be killed. I am the Lord of everything. I am perfect. I am powerful. And I am happy. I'm surrounded by rich and aristocratic relatives. I shall perform some sacrifice. I shall give some charity, and thus I shall rejoice. In this way the demoniac are bewildered by ignorance. So, the symptom of being a demon is that one is covered with ignorance and accepts certain qualities, certain ideas, such as this world belongs, part of the world at least belongs to me, and that I'm independently powerful on my own. I'm perfect, powerful, and happy. In other words, there's the whole basic principle, one doesn't give any credit to Krishna for anything, because there is no Krishna according to the demons. Or if there is a Krishna, then I will kill him also. Just like Hiranyakashipu. He made his plans to find Krishna, because his baby brother, Hiranyaksha, was killed by Lord Varaha, Krishna, and therefore he wanted to find Krishna and kill him. When I went to college, I studied experimental psychology, which was, the concept was created by a person named B.F. Skinner. And according to B.F. Skinner, that as there was a scientist named Pavlov. You've heard of Pavlov? You heard of Pavlov? You heard of Pavlov? Ananta, did you ever hear Pavlov?
Famous experiment.
Yes, he not so famous among the innocent and pure. His idea was he'd take a dog and he'd ring a bell and then he'd feed the dog some food. And the dog, of course, when he saw the food, he would produce saliva. So he kept on doing it. He rang the bell and gave the dog food, and invariably saliva. The dog would produce saliva, expecting the food. So then he started to ring the bell and didn't give them any food, but still the dog associated with the ringing of the bell with food, so he produced saliva in his mouth. So this is called conditioned reflex. He was conditioned by a certain stimuli, and then there would be a certain reaction. So this was considered to be proof that all of us are different manifestations of a rat in a laboratory. The difference between ourselves and the rat in the laboratory is that the rat's in the laboratory and we're outside the laboratory. We're just a bigger version of the dog who's conditioned by stimuli, and then he gets an automatic response. So Pavlov's idea was that the whole world is simply based upon stimuli and response. There is no free will, there's only stimuli, and then people are reacting. As Krishna says, that this is right out of the textbook of Bhagavad Gita, asatyam apratishtam te, jagarohara anishwaram, aparashparam sambudyam kimayat kamahaitukam. They say that this world is unreal, it has no foundation, it has no God in control, is produced of sex desire, and has no other cause than lust. In other words, love makes the world go round. Or lust makes the world go round, depending which word you want to leave. That everyone is just stimulated and then they give a response, like an animal. Now later on, of course, in the world we have what's called proactive, that we have the opportunity to sit back and reflect what would be the best response, that we're not necessarily victims of our external environment. We actually have some ability to reflect and make decisions based upon intelligence rather than just stimuli and then the response. But of course they also don't put Krishna into the picture there either, the modern psychologists, because they don't know what to reflect on. Whether they want beer brand A or beer brand B, it still is beer. It's not a very distinct choice between one brand of beer and the other. That's not exactly what we consider free will. Therefore, free will can only be manifested when we make a choice. Either we follow Krishna's instructions or we don't. Now the Vedic culture, the duties in the Vedic culture were all meant for people of a certain psychophysical nature and give them an opportunity to participate in yajna. And yajna means yaga vai Vishnu. In other words, to sacrifice their energies in order to satisfy Vishnu. Now the most minimum way you satisfy someone is you follow their instructions. If someone says jump and you fall down on the ground, it's like if you had a dog and you said to the dog sit and he jumps, and you say jump and he sits, you probably want to get a different dog after some time, unless you're very patient. No, you expect at least the dog to listen to you. No one else listens to you. At least the dog's supposed to. So everyone's looking for someone to surrender, that will surrender to them. At least in the material world, people put on the pretense that I'm your surrendered servant. One of the times I held the umbrella of a Prabhupada when we were coming into the airport in Dallas, Texas. And then there was videotaped, not my holding Prabhupada's umbrella over Prabhupada, but Prabhupada's interview at the airport. And there was one lady there, a lady reporter, and started to challenge Prabhupada. Why is that, we heard that you say that women's brains are 32 ounces. I think it's 16 ounces. No, 16 ounces. And men's brains are 32 ounces. So how is this more or less, how is it possible? So Prabhupada said that in the middle of the conversation, he said that, she said, the lady reporter, you think women are subordinate to men? And Prabhupada's answer was, yes, of course. Women say, here I am, take me, I'm your servant, take me. I want to serve you. So, of course, no one in the material world wants to really serve anyone, but it's one way of getting someone to surrender to you. You serve them, and then they'll listen to you. No one's looking for a competitor, everyone's looking for a servant. So if someone is willing to serve, then they conquer the person's heart by service. Even in the spiritual world, Srimati Radharani doesn't say, my dear Krishna, see how beautiful I am, serve me. No, Krishna is not conquered by such an attitude. He's only conquered by love, by service. And then even Krishna is conquered by love or service. So what to speak of anyone else? So the demoniac is, I don't love anyone except for my senses. I'm going to serve my senses. I'm going to get other people to serve my senses too, all in the name of love. But actually I don't love anyone, I just love my senses. Just like Narada Muni was walking along one day and he met this hunter who was killing people, actually, an assassin, and killing animals too. So he asked him, why are you robbing and killing people? He said, because for my family, of course. And so Narada Muni said, do you think your family is going to agree to enjoy the sinful reactions that you're acquiring from this horrible work that you're doing? She said, of course they will, because they love me. So Narada Muni said, well, just go home and ask your wife and your children if they're willing to share the sinful reactions for your work. So the killer went home, the thief went home, and told his wife, my dear wife, I know you love me. I'm supporting the family. I'm killing so many people to support you. Would you please accept at least a portion of my sinful reactions? And she said, no way. She said, we accept the money, but you keep the sinful reactions. We'll see you later. And then he went to his children and said, my dear children, I'm doing so many horrible things to serve you, to support you. Could you please accept some of my sinful reactions? They said, no way. Get lost. And then he went to his dog and said, my dear dog, for your sake, I'm doing so many sinful activities. Can you accept some of my sinful reactions? And when his dog bit him, then he knew that was the end. It was too much. So in the material world, no one is doing anything except for serving their senses, and therefore the result is tanaham dvishata kuran samsareshu naradamam shipram yajasram ashubam asri shveva yonishu. Those who are envious and mischievous, the lowest among men, I cast into the lower species of life. Now, the human form of life is meant to use our intelligence and decide what's best for our liberation from the material concept of life. The human form of life is meant to get out of the bodily concept of life, not to become more deeply involved in it. But if one doesn't try to get out of the materialistic, the demoniac mentality of serving the senses and mind without any discrimination, without any conception of one's duty towards the Supreme, then the result is that one is considered to be envious. Envious of who? Well, first of all, one is envious of Krishna. If you find someone with some money and you steal it from them, obviously you don't like the person. So we've entered into the material world and we're trying to steal some part of the world from Krishna because we're envious of him. Why should Krishna be the only proprietor? I should also be a proprietor. Why should only Krishna be the enjoyer? I want to enjoy also. So it's a kind of appreciation of Krishna, how great he is, and we're trying to become like him, but that's not possible. We can become like him, but we can't become the proprietor. Nor is Krishna really interested in being the proprietor of the illusory entity, because there's not much to really be the proprietor of here. It's just a combination of earth and water and fire and air and ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Not something really very glamorous. Like if you are on the street and you saw a bag full of earth and water and air and fire and ether, what could you do with it? Not much. But if it has a certain shape, then you want to take it home with you. Because so that's called illusion. So in the material world, everyone has started life in illusion, but we have an opportunity to get out of illusion also by trying to do something for Krishna. Now in the Varnashram system, those who are Shudras, they can assist the higher caste of life. Higher caste of life means that some people would grow food and milk the cows. That was considered higher. It was a respectable service to milk cows and take care of the agriculture. Because that's the most basic thing, the most important thing in material life is eating. But some of that production would go towards producing ghee, which could be used in the sacrifices. And part of it would be utilized to exchange for precious metals like gold, which could also be used, and jewels that could also be used in the sacrifice. And then the Kshatriyas would gather the ingredients for sacrifice, and the Brahmins would perform the sacrifice for Vishnu, for the pleasure of Vishnu, we could say. And when Vishnu is pleased, then the rain would come, and the production would come, and people would be satisfied because the weather would be good, everything would be auspicious, materially speaking. There was no less anxiety, and healthy life without any anxiety. Because it would be clear that Krishna was in charge of everything. And when it was clear that people work for Krishna, then Krishna would provide, through his agents, the demigods, all the necessities of life, and people had no anxiety. There was no unemployment, there was no lack of anything auspicious. Only when people did something sinful, then there would be some problem, like a famine or a war or something like that. But other than that, people had a very peaceful, happy life. And because of that, they had appreciation for Krishna. They knew if they followed Krishna's instructions, everything would go all right. So people generally followed and served Krishna's instructions. And his representatives, whether it was the Brahmins or the Kshatriyas or the Vaishyas, they followed them because they knew it was auspicious for them. And that was civilization. But now people don't follow anyone's instructions. Matter of fact, if someone says black, the next response is white. If someone says jump, people immediately sit down, just to show them that I'm defiant, I don't listen to anyone, I'm independent, I'm perfect, I'm powerful, I'm happy. So the result is, no one serves Krishna, no one follows his instructions, and therefore the weather is horrible, the food is polluted, the air is polluted, the water is polluted. Instead of protecting cows, they're killing them, killing each other. Everything has gone haywire, only because people refuse to follow Krishna's instructions. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come and asked people simply to chant Hare Krishna. Chant, 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 as one lady was telling her mother at the time of death. Chant, chant, chant. And her mother was going, can't, can't, can't. So that's most unfortunate. Whereas one lady devotee her mother was leaving her body and said, my dear mother, chant Hare Krishna. And her last words of her mother were, I cannot say so many words. And then she died. That's so unfortunate. People are so unfortunately trained because they have no faith that there's any God in control, that there's any laws of nature. And even if they think there are laws, they're trying to defy them. As I said, B.F. Skinner, his idea was that one day we'll find out where the kingdom of God is, we'll break into it, and then we'll kill the old man, and we'll become God. Nice philosophy. Therefore, if you when I went to the universities, because I also went to the University of Texas, I tried to do programs there. And many different schools, because it's university means different schools, they allow us to do programs there. But the worst school, the worst part of the university was the psychology department. They were the most demoniac out of all of them. They hated the idea that anything spiritual. Because now modern society has progressed quite a bit now. Even if you say the word God, people will beat you. He's cursed us. He said the word God. So this means that society has become even more degraded, but still by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If they hear the holy name, then they might get enough intelligence to understand the reality of how things are going on. The sun is not rising by accident, nor is it set by accident. The very body that we're in, where we can eat food and it gets digested, part of it gets assimilated and unnecessary parts get eliminated. It's a marvelous creation that no scientist can duplicate. Therefore, if one follows Krishna's instructions, at least by chanting Hare Krishna, then one will be able to understand Krishna's presence and appreciate that there is an all-attractive person that everyone is actually looking for. We have a soulmate, but it's Krishna. One will be able to understand that and appreciate it and follow Krishna's instructions, because his instructions are all good. As Krishna is all good, his instructions are also all good, because he wants everyone to be happy. He's asking people to follow his instructions so they can be happy and prosperous. But if they don't follow his instructions, then they'll become unhappy and degraded and poverty-stricken. So Krishna is giving instructions, like Prabhupada gives the example, some father is telling his child, don't put your hand in the fire, but just out of defiance, the child puts his hand in the fire and it gets burnt. So Krishna is giving us all good instructions, and we're thinking, well, I'm not going to listen to him. I'm going to show him who's the boss. So we try to do that, and then material nature shows us who the boss is. And it's not us. Sorry. But if we find out who the real boss is, we'll find out he's a better boss than we can ever be. He's a perfect boss, and he does everything perfectly, so everyone can also become perfect. That's his only desire. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes.
The story of man being sent home, asking for simple is also in Ramayana. Ratnakara later become Valmiki with that Saptarishis, and they send him home to check if they'll take his sins.
Oh, that was Valmiki?
Yeah, Ratnakara before he became Valmiki.
Okay.
He wanted to rob Saptarishis.
He wanted to rob them.
Yeah. Then they send him home, ask, and he was confident that everyone would say, yes, sure.
He was wrong. Anything else? Yes. A small question.
Can I ask one question from Nectar of Devotion?
That was your first question. You can ask two.
I was reading about this, the reactions of 4 sinful activities. The one which is the sin which is mature, which is almost mature. The third one is the desire.
Bija.
Bija, yeah. Kutam Bija and this other two.
Prarabdha and aprarabdha karma.
Yeah. So I was reading about this, and then it says that but when one starts to chant Hare Krishna, the reactions of these 4 sinful activities, karma, counteracts, I think.
It removes.
Yeah, when one fully surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the reactions of the four?
No, when one starts to surrender, gradually as we get purified, then the tendency towards these sinful desires gradually diminish. Everything begins with avidya, ignorance, and from avidya comes the papa, the desire for sinful life, namely lust, anger, greed. And from there comes prarabdha and aprarabdha karma, and that comes to bija, the seed for sinful desire, kuta, the seed for material desire, bija. And then that leads to sinful desires, which lead to sinful reactions. But by chanting, by becoming purified, then avidya is destroyed, and as avidya is destroyed, so is papa, bija, prarabdha and aprarabdha karma. Gradually they're removed. Otherwise, I mean, how many of us are looking forward to going to McDonald's, have a Big Mac? Well, previously we might have been interested before we became a devotee, but now it seems pretty abominable, eating a dead animal. But for most people, they think that this is life, this is great, because they're contaminated by sinful desires. But we've become purified, at least to that extent.
For example, if this one, if the desire, the sinful desire in the heart, this one. So if, for example, if we are performing the devotion service and everything, and we are getting purified slowly, and if somebody, let's say, was smoking previously before becoming, coming to Krishna consciousness, and now with the gradual process, this person is getting purified, but then sometimes there can be some fall downs, accidental fall downs, and he or she ends up, smoking a cigarette, for example. So should that be concluded that that person still had some sinful desires in the heart?
That person, all of us have sinful desires in our heart. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes we can restrain them, but in bad association, they may manifest themselves. Good association, sometimes, just like we have a choice of what desire we fulfill. So in good association, we have a better choice to fulfill good desires. Like during the kirtan, most people don't light up a cigarette. But if you go out and you get better association, and then that tendency might manifest itself. So it depends on our association.
So even when we are performing devotion service and gradually purifying our heart, still we have the sinful desires. It's just a matter of the right association.
It's just a matter of making the right choices. If we engage in devotional service, then we should get a higher taste, and then we'll forget about it. And then as we become purified, then we forget more and more about sinful life because it goes away. Krishna purifies itself, our heart. And therefore the tendency towards sinful desires diminishes. As one becomes, the heart becomes purified, and the taste increases for Krishna consciousness, then one chooses Krishna consciousness over materialistic desires. The higher the taste, the less likely is to choose anything material, because why would one gets the opportunity to eat sweet rice, why would one eat rice with sand in it rather than sugar? So one gets the taste for sweet rice with sugar, he loses the taste for sweet rice with sand. Sandy rice.
Thank you.
Anything else? Khala Grantaraj Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande.